Oh, where's the thing? Wait, hold on a minute.
You gotta do it again.
Yeah, that was fucked up. There we go. When the crowd gets busted, when the floor gets dusted, when the blade gets rusted, Widdershins, when the room smells funny, when the hex takes your money, what's gonna save you, honey? Just Widdershins. Hold on a second. All you witches. And now you're over dishes. It's time to start listening to Widdershins.
God, you gotta move. Mojo, can you go? Good boy.
And welcome to Widdershins.
Widdershins.
We are in the midst of our the screen did weird shit, and I don't know how to fix it right now. We're in the midst of our WitchCon marathon, where we are trying to interview as many of the WitchCon presenters as we can before WitchCon starts. And it's a lofty goal. I gotta say, there's like 100 of them, and they're all really good. And some people answer our messages, some people don't. There's some people I haven't even messaged yet, but it's like shooting fish in a barrel, man. They're all incredible presenters, and I've oft said that maybe one of the reasons that like WitchCon and WitchCon and Hexfest are so successful and have such big time presenters is because they pay their presenters. It's a rare thing. We will plug WitchCon in its fullest a little bit, but tonight we got Clifford Hartleigh Low.
Hartley.
Is that, do I pronounce it right? Hartleigh.
Or Hartley?
No, Hartleigh.
You said Harley.
That's,
I'm correcting
okay.
you, saying Hartley.
How do we say your name, Chris?
Clifford.
Clifford. Oh, did we even lose him?
Hello?
I don't hear him. He was there. Clifford.
I hear somebody breathing.
Yeah, there's somebody there. Clifford.
Maybe it's some of the sorcery he does.
Yeah.
Okay, Mojo, go.
Can you hear me at all?
Yeah.
Yeah, we hear you.
Now.
Do you hear us?
All right. I can hear.
Clifford, how are you? Welcome to the show.
It's having some connected.
Yeah, it's cutting out a bit. But we do hear you.
I can be comprehended, then it's cool.
We'll try.
I'm new to the show. Show me the ropes.
Okay. I'm just trying to figure out if it's cutting out still or not, because didn't catch much. Widdershins is pretty much we hang out and talk to people about witchcraft and stuff. Not a huge format. Tell us a bit about yourself, if you would.
So I've been practicing magic since I was a child. It's known today for a very specific tradition.
Hey,
Renaissance.
Clifford, I'm going to call you right back. It just keeps cutting out.
Okay.
I don't want to miss any of this. Okay, where's the number? Okay, hopefully that's better. We'll let you
Okay,
hear it
hopefully
ring.
you can hear me now.
Yeah.
That sounded good.
Yeah.
All right. As you were saying,
Okay, so
sir.
start again. Tell us about yourself.
Okay. Background is unusual. I've been studying magic and divination. I've studied more traditions of
Do you want to use my phone?
different systems, but I'm a system of astrological magic
Can you find that message where he has it phone number?
and started around 2003
All right.
on the internet and past several years. The first astrological.
All right.
And
Clifford, Clifford,
coming
hold on. We still have that cutting out. You
let's see, I was raised in
No, it's Clifford. You're
And
you're
by the time I
you're cutting out.
got myself into a bit of trouble and got myself out of that mess.
Can you hear me, Clifford?
Things to solve the problem. And I began to look for
I want to hear this.
I know.
to perform because I had
Can I just call him from my phone?
I'm not sure if that's
And,
the same number.
which was miraculous from them.
This is the number he told me to call.
And I stumbled across began to adopt magic. He was a student of Robert Zoll.
So Clifford,
Of
can you hear me, Clifford?
yes,
You've been cutting out for a while now. I'm trying to figure out if the number that you sent to Marta is different than the number that you sent to me, and maybe we can call you on a different number. But it's just, we really want to hear this story,
Yeah.
and we haven't caught most of it. So,
well, I can go grab it right now.
okay. Okay. Let me see if that's the same number. Hi, y'all.
Sorry, guys.
4,
This has never happened
7,
before.
8. No, it's the same. Okay. Well, we are going to bring you Clifford Hartleigh Low somehow. Now, let's see. Now he's got my number.
Tell him to call you.
Widdershins. We roll with the punches. So, WitchCon, the largest online festival of magic ever conceived, people. In its third year now, we're talking about this year. It's coming up March 3rd to the 5th. We'll do the full plug later. But it's epic and it's going to sell out. And I, of course, am there. So that's my dog in the fucking race right there. So I am a WitchCon presenter and you'll want to be for years to come. So it behooves me to make sure that WitchCon is successful. Let's see what Clifford's saying to me here, people.
Seriously, this has never happened before.
Different number. Okay. Call on this one.
It makes everything more intimate.
All right,
It does.
work.
Clifford.
Yes. All right, can you hear me better now? Hopefully.
Yes.
Yes. Can you just pretend that you didn't say any of the stuff that you said before and say it again?
And it'll be better the
Be better
next
than
time.
this.
All right. Okay, so my name is Clifford Hartleigh Low. I have the unusual qualification, having studied more systems of magic than possibly anybody else alive, at least 20 different systems.
Woo.
I began studying magic and divination when I was about 8 years old. I grew up in an Orthodox Jewish tradition, and because it seemed like a smart thing to do at the time, I summoned a demon by the time I was 11. And then basically got my home haunted by demons for decades. In the process of trying to rid myself of that problem, that's how I ended up in different systems of magic. And by the end of that crisis, in the late 90s, I began to question a lot of my assumptions about magic overall. That led me to make a significant switch towards the study of astrological magic, because I became convinced that this was the original tradition of magic from the Middle Ages and Renaissance, which produced miracles. Because I found that a lot of modern magic really didn't do a lot of that. It wasn't, well, Dungeons and Dragons enough for me. There were no 3d6 fireballs shooting out of my Wicca cannon.
Mm-hmm.
And my holy grail was to find a powerful system of magic that was also relatively safe. Because I had done a lot more demonic magic, which was very powerful but incredibly treacherous to deal with, and I eventually washed my hands of it completely. What was the turning point for me was I came into contact with Christopher Warnock, who runs RenaissanceAstrology.com. And his magical practice focuses largely on talismans that were designed during the Renaissance, which makes sense considering it's RenaissanceAstrology.com. But he also eventually got a lot of ideas from the Picatrix, a very famous book of black magic, which actually comes from an earlier period in the medieval era, around 1000 AD. After a number of years of working with Chris as a mentor to me and teacher, I broke off on my own and began to do more early focused magic, mostly focusing on Picatrix, and it ended up making what are called talismans. Talismans can mean a lot of different things by modern standards, but during the Middle Ages, it had a very narrow definition. These were living objects, objects which were possessed by spirits, usually angels, but not exclusively, spirits of time. And they had endowed lots of miraculous powers. They were primarily in the form of gemstone rings, but sometimes they were made out of precious metal pendants, which is what Chris specialized in. I kind of liked the gemstone rings more, and I ended up making a few thousand of them. And I was very impressed, and I found that the system of astrological magic, which itself was called the science of images back in the day, produced miraculous phenomena better than anything else I'd encountered, and did so fairly reliably and safely. In order to demonstrate the validity of what I had discovered, and in order to impress a friend, actually, I made a ring of wealth. I didn't really need money at the time. I just wanted to impress my friend, who was a starving artist. And this magical ring of wealth basically brought me a mysterious inheritance of just under $2 million in very short order. And the internet got, really excited about this, but some people poo-pooed it and said, no, it's just a coincidence. So many people trying to do wealth magic over the years. It can't be astrological magic. That's silly. It's just a coincidence.
Right.
And, they had a point, because a lot of people are doing, wishing upon a star in one sense or another to do that. And so I didn't agree with them, but I understood why they were skeptical. So I went back into my lab and I made a second talisman, and then I got I made a talisman to win lawsuits, and I won a lawsuit a short time later, which got me several $1 million. So I think people began to shut up and take me seriously at that point. But talismans have done a lot more for me than that, though people tend to notice big money numbers and so forth. I began to do a series of lectures called Big Money Magic, or on the variations of the theme of that, in order to promote what I discovered on that front, and also some other things that I discovered in hoodoo, because like I said, I study many different traditions and I tend to bring them together when I can. I've been able to do things like conjure winds, conjure spirits. I've been able to heal various illnesses. I've had poor health all of my life, and ever since I've been using these gemstone rings, my health has improved to the point that my doctors are astounded. They think, maybe I was giving the wrong blood with the first sample. I seem to be getting younger. One of the newer discoveries of mine are a series of talismans which restore youth and improve health in a very visible way. So that about 20 years ago, when I first got into astrological magic, I ran into a friend of mine. I met a friend of mine, Sam, and then after about 15 years, I ran into him again. He said, "I look 10 years younger than when you first met me." And like, and I'm in the 50s, but most people say that I look like I'm in my 40s. That's good enough, but I'm not technically aging backward, but it's more than just an illusion.
So I don't know what workshop you're teaching, but are we going to get those talismans if we take that workshop?
I'll be talking about them. What I'll be doing is what has happened recently is there's a crisis in the astrological magic community, and some of it's my fault. I've been lecturing on astrological magic throughout the convention circuit for at least 15 years. It popularized astrological magic, but somehow I was not able to convey how difficult it was to make effective and safe talismans. I often tell people that it takes about 10 years of constant work to really become a master of this system. And someone, and I don't really know who, started saying that astrological magic was easy, and maybe with a year or two of study, you can start making talismans and selling them. And the result of this is that there's a glut of fake talismans on the market, and even ones that do work but have terrible side effects. And I wish I had conveyed the difficulty of this process more. And I kind of want to start a movement of reform so that we can get back to the fundamentals and people can understand really what we're dealing with here. What's unfortunately happened is that while I was lecturing to the magical community, telling them we need to reincorporate astrology, other people within the astrological community were trying to basically add little dashes of magic without the experience and training of basically a proper magician. And the result is it's gone a bit amok. And a lot of people are getting burned out in astrological magic. There are many people who are feeling that it was always a sham. And I'm trying to basically steer things back to a safe and smart place. And one of the things I want to do at WitchCon is basically explain the technical theory behind astrological magic, the talismans associated with it. And it's not exclusively talismans, but it's primarily talismans. And also explain the history of the system, because nobody's really explained it all in one place. And a lot of people think that it's just a number of techniques which have sort of been flung together from many different cultures and centuries, when in fact there's a fairly clear lineage and a progression of ideas which start around 950 AD and continue to evolve until maybe the 1600s.
So all of you asking on, we're on YouTube, a couple Facebook pages, and TikTok, and you people on TikTok are asking, what's going on? Well, we're talking to Clifford Hartleigh Low, and if you don't know what he's talking about, that's why you need to be at WitchCon. WitchCon, for
Absolutely.
all you TikTok witches, especially that don't want to read books. WitchCon's your wet dream. You've got like 100 epic presenters teaching stuff that you're never going to learn anywhere else, and you have access to it for as long as the platform exists. We still haven't watched all of the stuff from like 3 years ago.
Not even close.
And last year. There's like so much epic stuff. WitchCon could be downloaded and become your digital book of shadows. You baby witches don't want to write anything down. It could be it. Just from those 100 presenters, you could learn a lot of shit. And Clifford here, absolutely. How many of you been trying like wealth magic? How's that working for you? Win the lotteries, getting rich, that kind of thing. One of the things in Clifford's epically long bio was the epic parties that he throws, and I'm here to tell you, we're here to tell you, that's legit. I probably haven't seen Clifford since Pantheacon a decade ago or something at this point, but epic party. We had spent all day holding court in the sushi bar which was,
And then we go to your parties and be like, what
Yeah,
the fuck do
it
we
was
just
like,
spend a
and
bunch of
you
money
had
on?
such better sushi
Yep.
that we, spent
Yep.
really expensive, overpriced sushi
Yep.
at the sushi bar in that hotel. And we went to Clifford's place, and then we got absinthe and good people to talk to. Epic parties, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, back in the day, this is a separate side of my life. I was a goth industrial promoter in New York City, and after I retired from that, I started going to PantheaCon regularly, and it occurred to me that nobody knew how to throw a party there. And so I got some of my nightlife friends together, and we started throwing sophisticated parties, and it sort of caught on where basically I started a little revolution at PantheaCon where suddenly the suite parties were getting more sophisticated and higher budgets. And that continued for about 14 years, and I'm pretty proud of the absent parties that we threw. And I'm coming out of retirement with regards to nightlife in New York City, and I'm going to be bringing back one of my old events called Byzantium sometime next year. Actually, I checked out a new venue for it last night, in fact, and things went very well.
So did you used to live in California when you were going to PantheaCon?
I didn't hear the first part.
Did you used to live in California?
Well, yes,
Okay.
but not when I was going to PantheaCon, strangely enough.
Okay.
What happened was that I moved to California back in the 90s, and I hoped to get rich with the .com boom, and I ended up, my magic was pretty bad back then, and I ended up on the street, and I basically moved back to New York with my tail between my legs. But I made so many friends in California that I wanted to basically connect with them later on, and I found that all of them were going to PantheaCon. I said, all right, I'll just throw a party at PantheaCon, and that turned into the absent parties for 14 years. It was very, very successful. I'm glad you enjoy yourself.
Oh, yeah. Good stuff.
There's a legacy from those parties.
It's memorable.
Yeah.
I don't know how many other parties I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, every year I tried to top myself. I decided that I would make it an icon of excess. So by the time the absinthe parties were winding down, we were, buying 48 bottles of imported absinthe from Europe, and we had 28 trays of sushi that second to last year. We had 16 volunteers, and we had 2 bars running, and out of the presidential suite. And what happened was that when we did close it down, because it was very stressful and expensive, and I couldn't keep up in the ante every year, PantheaCon began to lose its mojo. People stopped going to PantheaCon because my parties weren't there anymore, and that was one of the factors, unintentionally, which led to PantheaCon dying.
Oh, you were part of it.
Yeah.
Well, us not
no
going
idea.
is probably part of it too.
I apologize.
No, it's all right.
Us not going too when we moved away, that probably helped too. Yeah.
Well, I think it ended right before we moved away.
Yeah. But oddly enough, WitchCon started with some controversy. There was some former people from PantheaCon that had intended on using WitchCon.com at some future point, someday. I don't know, but they were very upset when Christian Day, approached the person that owned the domain and bought it from them because someday they were going to have a festival called WitchCon, and it had been like 3 years or something like that since they staked their claim on the domain and didn't do anything. And then, now WitchCon's been going on for 3 years. So.
Indeed. Yeah. PantheaCon, the people who ran PantheaCon, I believe they were genuinely well-intended, but they made some really boneheaded mistakes towards the end of its run. And a lot of people are heartbroken about the political aspects of that. We also miss the community, and I have good memories of the good old days.
Well, back in my day,
I think we conceived our son at PantheaCon.
Yeah, actually,
That's pretty cool.
I think so too.
Yeah.
But back in the further day, I believe they were the same people that put on Ancient Ways, And so Pantheon was in a hotel.
Oh,
Ancient
what's
Ways was like a campground.
yeah.
It was very different.
Yep.
But I Ancient Ways must have ended because I just didn't hear about it forever. But Pantheon kept going.
Have you ever been to Hex Fest?
I have not. Basically, my plans to go to Hex Fest got blocked by a bunch of real life problems combined with the pandemic. And every time that I planned on going, something got in the way. But I'm hoping to go there soon.
Nice.
A friend of mine who I was working on another project with today spoke glowingly of Hex Fest, so I'm more excited than ever to go.
Yeah, the first
And I love
time
New
we
Orleans.
ever went to New Orleans was to go to Hex Fest, and 6 months later, we're walking into our house here.
Yeah, the
Excellent.
place can suck
It
you
sucks
in.
you in sometimes. Yeah.
It's not bad.
No,
It's a good suck you
Excellent.
I
in.
like it.
The storm's coming. Might be a tornado. We don't know. If you hear
It's
that,
kind of exciting.
if you hear that alert going on, we might have to end the broadcast. But not a big tornado warning around these parts.
No. That just started a couple years ago. We
Mhm.
never had tornadoes. We have hurricanes in the summer. It's hurricane season, but tornadoes is like a brand new thing.
So
Yeah, that's pretty scary.
Yeah.
There've been a couple of twisters coming through where I live in New Jersey, but fortunately, I've never seen one up close.
So how do you define yourself? Like magician, wizard,
I think
witch?
he says sorcerer.
So I believe it was sorcerer, but I was
Oh,
checking to
okay.
see if that was still the case.
Well, I'm pretty flexible about the terminology used to describe me. I called myself the sorcerer a long time, and the story of why I did that was just sheer coincidence. A friend of mine introduced me something called Gmail, which was supposed to be the next big Hotmail, and I found an email which said sorcery@gmail.com. I said, great, I'm going to be the sorcerer now. That's all it really was. I got the really great email. But for the longest time, sorcerer for me meant to be a rogue magician, someone who was improvisational and didn't mind breaking a few taboos. But now that I've become more of a very good amateur scholar of the history of magic, I understand that sorcery has a bit of a darker tone to it. And I'm not against calling myself the sorcerer, but nowadays sometimes I call myself an archmage, which I know is completely pretentious, but it's my way of trying to express the fact that I've studied so many different traditions of magic and incorporated them all into my practice. And at this point in my mid-50s, I should probably, pat myself on the back and over the fact that I haven't killed myself with all the experimentation I've done over these years. Because boy, do I take crazy risks sometimes.
Well, we probably come from the same generation, and the theme of my generation was live fast, die young. And I always said, I tried.
Good.
It just didn't work out. So now I gotta do something.
I was stunned that I made it to 30. I was stunned that I made it to 30. I couldn't believe it. And here I am 20 years later and scratching my head. I'm not a teenager anymore. How did that happen?
Yeah.
But yeah, I did some crazy stuff. I was like I said, I was in before I was a goth promoter. I was basically a nightlife scenester, doing magic on the side before I got truly serious. I mean, even though I was studying dozens of systems of magic, I wasn't doing it on a daily basis like I should have. It was only in the 2000s where I basically went into seclusion for about a decade and really, really cracked the books. My lifestyle back then was really inspired through friends of John Constantine from the comic books, the Hellblazer comic books. We all wanted to be him. And so we were all street mages. And back in the 90s, we basically lived in and out of the East Village, Alphabet City, where it was very high crime. And I got involved with a number of groups who tried to clean up a lot of the problems in the pagan scene that were going on then, because the cops were not very friendly to the pagans in New York at that point. And we ended up creating kind of community policing groups / vigilante groups who combined real life action and early internet activities with spellwork. And that became part of the foundation of my activism and my politics.
So they were actively like working against pagan groups?
Well, the word on the street, and I never encountered this directly, but everyone I spoke to said that if you called the police and like your apartment was robbed and they found a pentagram somewhere, they would plant drugs on you and throw you in jail. If you did not have drugs, they would drop them on you. And we heard many stories about custody battles where custody was taken away from a parent, but for no other reason than the fact that they were identified as pagan. That was considered abusive, and that was sort of normal in New York City back in the day.
Yeah.
So the word on the street was never call the cops for anything. And a few years after that, it really became common wisdom. Bad people started to flood into the scene. And we really did have drug dealers and pedophiles and cult leaders who were deliberately targeting pagans because they knew that we would never call the cops on them. And it became a serious problem.
Wow. Well, yeah, I'm 57, so we went through the same kind of things. Yeah. Never called. Yeah, we never called the cops. I think that's kind of where a lot of magic gets its place in the first place. Is these people that can't call the cops. It's kind of like the mafia almost. You got to get justice some other way. Your people can't call the cops. And back in my day, you could lose your job, you could lose your house, you could lose your kids for being pagan, and on everything, all the applications except for having a kid, that was on there. You had to put your religion on there. People fought long and hard to get that out of the equation.
Well, one of my friends / mentors was Dr. Leo Lewis Martello.
Oh my God, yes. Activist.
Leo, not everybody liked Leo, but I liked Leo. He and I got each other pretty well.
Yeah.
So what happened, Leo was one of the early gay pagan activists, long before I knew him. I knew him as a very old man who was, hanging out at the magic shops, drinking black coffee and smoking these odoriferous cigarillos and cracking dark jokes. I don't know did you ever meet him?
No, I am.
Okay.
I definitely know of his work and activism and witchcraft intermingled, but you actually met him.
He was one of the funniest men I've ever met in my life, which is why we got along. We both had a very dark sense of humor. If you want to imagine what Leo was like in person, imagine a gay witch George Carlin, because the dude was Italian to the fucking core and very, very dark and revenge-oriented gentleman. And he basically was one of the people who coordinated a lot of these little cliques into something like an organized attempt to clean up the village and get the bad actors out. And it's only now that I actually have a clear idea of his roots, that I understand where that all came from. Leo's activism comes from his early beginnings before the Stonewall riots. And back then, before the Stonewall riots, gay activism, such as it existed, were basically working together against the cops and to a certain extent against the mob as well, because nobody liked gay people back then. There was no consolidation. And Leo took what he remembered from another group, gay people who couldn't call the cops back in the 50s and 60s, and taught us pagans in the 90s on how to basically organize and resist these problematic folk in our community. And it was actually when we got really frustrated because nothing was really working that I began to include in my own activism an attempt to figure out the secrets of magic in order to drive these people off. Because I remember one of the people who was involved with this was my ex-girlfriend, Ellen. And one night, I remember having a conversation with her. And I said, Ellen, we're witches. Why don't we use witchcraft to solve this problem? And she looked at me incredulously and she said, and then began to laugh and says, because witchcraft doesn't work. And then I said, Ellen, what if we got her? And that was a turning point in my life where I really was driven to find effective magic to solve real world problems and get things. When I was younger, I was really interested in doing magic which validated the reality of magic, but I wasn't really focused so much upon achieving specific ends. I just wanted to, do interesting party tricks, so to speak, to make me feel special. And that validation period ended when I realized my friends' lives were in danger because of these bad people. And basically, I got very serious about effective magic, and I began to pivot between many different systems that I learned to find out which ones were more reliable. And, you know, that's when I got famous for having done 1,000 curses because I was trying to drive
I didn't
these
hear
people out
about
of my
that.
community. A lot of people don't know the history of that and assume it's something very negative. I was just trying to protect my friends and colleagues from drug dealers and predators. And the truth is 999 of those curses didn't do jack squat. It was the last one that finally did the trick, and I began to find a method of reliable spell work and use that as my foundation for all which came later.
Wow.
And I know you like the darker stuff yourselves. And by the time I really got sophisticated at this, I accidentally disproved the threefold law because I would have died like several hundred times by now. So that's a superstition, and we need to put it to bed.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm not a particularly vengeful person or a particularly angry person. I'm a very loving person, and I really believe in our communities. And I think we need to stand up for each other, regardless of the consequences, because it's not all about ourselves. And the guardian role is one that I'm very well suited for.
Wow.
Can I?
What?
Okay. Let me backtrack for just a second here for the TikTok witches. Hopefully you guys didn't get too far off the subject, but especially for the TikTok witches, Leo Martello. Look it up. Y'all like to say do your own research and Google stuff. You really need to know, especially all of the people here that are finding the connections between their spirituality and the fight for the rights of their sexuality. You gotta know Leo Martello. I remember back in the day, me and Marta had a friend that was a newscaster in San Francisco. He was a talking head. And
Tony?
Tony. And we mentioned the name Leo Martello. And he just, you know of Leo Martello? And he went on and talked at length about his active in the gay community. And this is like a newscaster guy, really knowledgeable guy, had no idea about his connection to witchcraft. And you know, and maybe we didn't have Google back then, because you just Google him, he's gonna come up. You know, the weird ways of witchcraft. It's quite a fucking book, kids.
I remember, years ago looking at his very small Wikipedia entry, and about a year ago, I went back to Wikipedia, and now it's really huge. And it focuses a lot on his gay witchcraft activism and his involvement in Italian witchcraft, which he founded a tradition of that. But it doesn't capture what a wise ass he was. He was just a funny, twisted gentleman, so much fun to spend time with. I never understood his background until long after he was gone. And I miss him terribly because he was one of the best of us. In terms of practical magic, he would admit right off the bat that he was not the most brilliant on that front. But when it came to activism, he was the forerunner of forerunners. And as a father of modern witchcraft, he's been to some degree forgotten. And we need to remind our communities that Leo started things that people take for granted today. Leo was doing witchcraft in the era where there was enormous amounts of homophobia in Wicca. This was the era, which is almost completely forgotten today, where Wiccans did not want gay people to join covens because it was a nature religion and unnatural people were unwanted. And he turned that all around. It was actually a splinter group from one of Leo's, which formed the Radical Fairy movement, which so completely changed the context of sexuality in Wicca that now we take it for granted that Wicca accepts everyone under its umbrella.
Absolutely. So, okay, they're asking in TikTok who's speaking. We're talking to Clifford Hartleigh Low. He actually knew Leo Martello. I only know of Leo Martello, so I'm fascinated. You should be fascinated because you probably haven't heard of them, and you should look that up. Yeah. Go, Clifford. Sorry. What were you
It's
saying?
cool. I consider it a part of ancestral veneration to keep the memories alive of the forefathers of our religious faith. And Leo was a larger than life figure that is a presence in my life and in my ancestral venerations. But when you do ancestral venerations, you don't always just use your blood relatives. You use the people who inspire you from the past. And I was very privileged to have known him in real life for as long as I did.
Amazing. Amazing. I'm a longtime activist and a witch, so he's always, high on my reading list. Anybody that did that kind of thing. Even Gwydion Pentherwyn, a lot of activism and some songs, no books, but still remember him.
Yeah,
I'm glad. I feel that when we form spiritual bonds with people like that, the bond is not broken by death. It's a foundation for practical magical work as well as sentimentality. And I do have a lot of sentimentality. That's sort of my nature. But I basically feel as though Leo and many of the other dead magicians and witches that I've known over the years help guide me and keep me on my own life purpose. They're my lodestar in a way.
Absolutely. So we're talking to Clifford Hartleigh Low, and we're talking about WitchCon. WitchCon is it's probably time to read the thing.
PSA.
If I can see the thing at this point, it's so far away. Bring the magic to you. March 3rd to the 5th, 2023. Join the largest live stream magical conference featuring nearly 100 witches and conjurers on live video across the globe. Watch classes live and then rewatch on demand as often as you like. WitchCon presenters are the preeminent masters of the magical arts and hail from across the rainbow spectrum of occult and spiritual practices. Registration, y'all, there's the important part. Registration is limited to 1,000 attendees. It's a bandwidth thing, y'all, and we're approaching the limits of that bandwidth. We still have people to interview, but the bandwidth might run out if you don't get there soon. Attendees, and it includes all live video classes, rituals, and performances, as well as access to recordings of every class after the event has ended via our on-demand video library, so you won't miss a single moment. Now, Hexfest is coming up after this. We're going to have to plug that too. And at Hexfest, a lot of us could be like partying late into the night, and people that have workshops in the morning, I'm not going to see them. People that have workshops, when I have a workshop, I'm not going to see them, and I wish I could see them. But at WitchCon, I can see them. All. I can see it all forever, over and over again. Attendees and fans will love the live shopping on our virtual vendorium featuring powerful ritual tools, signed books, exquisite jewelry, and handmade spellcrafts. Our virtual meet and greet, which that's where the real fun's at, kids. Lets attendees and fans alike meet and chat with presenters live on Zoom. And it's a great way to meet and know your favorite teachers. WitchCon Online is streamed on the Hex Education Network on Crowdcast, a web-based platform with no need to download an app. Get over to witchcon.com, or I don't want to hear from you, bitch ass. I don't want to hear you complaining about how you missed it. And maybe as you should have told me more, Uncle Birch. We've been telling you, we've been doing the WitchCon marathon. We've been telling you about WitchCon so fucking much, it's making all of our heads hurt. And we're going to continue with Clifford Hartley Low.
Clifford, I wanted to ask you something before I forget because he won't shut up. I went on your website the other day, and it looks like you have a shop link. And I went on it,
I couldn't hear.
Oh,
I couldn't hear you. I have what?
Oh, well, I went on your website, and you have a shop link, and I think your site's under construction or something, so I wasn't able to see it. Are you selling services or products?
I was going to be selling talismans and occult services through my sorcerer.blog, but I've decided to relocate the astrological magic portions to my new domain, astrologicalmagic.com.
Okay.
This is actually a good segue for me to promote my own project. I will be running the world's first astrological magic conference on September 2nd and 3rd in New York City. It's the first time we've ever had a real conference focusing upon this cluster of traditions, which used to be called the science of images. And we're going to have the cutting edge of everybody who's everybody in this particular field. And you can basically buy tickets and reserve your room at astrologicalmagic.com/conference, not convention/conference. And we have a good website up, but we haven't announced the speakers yet. But if you buy your tickets now, it will be at a discount. It'll be only $300. Once the full lineup is announced in about a month or so, then the price will go up to a bit over $400. So right now, if you're excited by this topic, buy your tickets now because seating is limited.
Give them the address
just went down,
again.
me and my team. Go ahead.
Give them the address again.
astrologicalmagic.com/conference.
There you go.
Magic with a C or magic with a CK?
Good question.
Not with a CK, no.
Okay.
Sorry, I don't use that particular affectation.
Okay.
One of the reasons why is it's just causing so much confusion. There was recently an event in New York City which was stage magic, and they spelled it with a CK, and now it's pure chaos because
oh my god,
now nobody knows what it means anymore.
Why would they do that?
Dear, bad editing.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
But I just went down to the hotel today with my team to inspect the premises for my conference. It's the Lexington Hotel, which is a historic hotel in New York City. Joe DiMaggio and Marilyn Monroe lived there when they were married. Ella Fitzgerald lived there. It's a jazz era styled Art Deco hotel, though it's under the Marriott brand. It is such a sumptuous place that they have their own champagne vending machine in the lobby. It's incredible.
Wow.
And we got the rights, we got the room rate down to rock bottom rates for Midtown New York, which is about $270 to $300 depending on the style of the room. And people are going to have a really great time because it's got a beautiful bar, it's got all the bells and whistles that a hotel could possibly want, and we have two really great lecture halls where we're going to run a 2-track event, 16 slots, at least 14 lecturers from all around the world coming in to teach everybody about astrological magic and what it can do for you.
All right.
Nice.
What is the name of your workshop, Clifford? I think we touched on some.
I believe the title is Astrological Magic, the History of Astrological Magic in Context, or something along those lines. I'm going to be dividing it into 2 sections. One which explains the methodology and the theory behind astrological magic, construction talismans, and other forms of astrological magic, and then explain the history of astrological magic as well as its revival, because if you actually want to know the history of this tradition, you're going to have to read a small library to connect all the dots together. And because I have a really large occult library, I've got 7,000 to 10,000 occult books in my home. It takes up a huge portion of my home. This will be the first time to basically bring all those facts and threads together so people can understand a comprehensive history of our tradition. And this is a tradition that basically has tendrils which go into many different things, so that even though it began in the classical era and continued through the Renaissance, a lot of people are familiar with aspects of this tradition through books like Cornelius Agrippa's 3 books of occult philosophy, the Picatrix, Francis Barrett's The Magus, all of which themselves were adopted by a group called the Golden Dawn in the Victorian era. And the Golden Dawn has had many different successor groups which have influenced other things which have come about since then, including Thelema and Wicca and Chaos Magic. So a lot of the stuff that we are exploring basically have an afterlife in many different successor traditions, most of which people are familiar with today.
Wow.
If you want to know where it all comes from, I'm the guy to talk to.
And you need to come to New Orleans, hang out. And on TikTok, you're asking, yes, this is on YouTube. So I know you all on TikTok. If you just joined, we're the last 10 minutes or so.
Yeah.
So if you want to catch the rest of the broadcast, go to YouTube, where it'll be, archived forever. If you're on my Facebook, it'll be there. Yes, so it's broadcasting on several channels there. What were you talking about?
Speaking of YouTube,
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Speaking of YouTube, I have my own YouTube channel, and you can watch a lot of my prior lectures. If you want to get a taste of my work. My YouTube channel is called Grimoire TV, which I really wish I'd chosen a different name, but it's been there for a while. You can watch maybe about 24 of my lectures up there if you want to get a taste of my work, which is fairly eclectic, but there's a lot of material on astrology and astrological magic there.
Okay. I don't know if I follow you there, but I will look.
See, he said grimoire.
Yes. That argument ended, a year ago, woman.
Just because you stopped arguing, apologize, and acknowledge that you were wrong. Okay.
All right. Clifford, thanks for coming on.
Oh, wait. I wanted to ask you.
Oh, yeah.
Did you ever get rid of that demon?
Yeah, eventually I did. What actually happened was that I got a team of exorcists in my home. So I got some reinforcements from actual exorcist pros, and they kicked his ass.
Good.
Nice.
It's its own story, but we have limited time today. Maybe I'll tell that story at a future event. Oh, I should also
Over
mention,
drinks in New Orleans. You have to tell us the story.
Go ahead.
I said you have to tell us.
In addition to WitchCon and my own conference, I'll be lecturing at Convocation, which is coming up in about 2 weeks in Detroit, right there outside Detroit in Dearborn, Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing 3 lectures there. One on curses, one on mind control magic, and one on certain aspects of my career that I'm leaving somewhat mysterious.
Damn. Almost want to go to Detroit, honey.
I know.
All right. Well, any more questions for Clifford?
Nope.
No? All right. Well, thank you, Clifford. We'll see you at WitchCon and hopefully see you in New Orleans soon because, Marta needs to hear these stories over drinks.
Yeah.
Me too.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for being tolerant for my interruptions. I am a bit overeager right now.
No, that's okay.
The show went on.
Yeah. Sorry about the beginning. I don't know what that was about.
Yeah. All right. Good to see you again, Clifford.
No
or talk to you again, Clifford.
Good to see you again.
All right. Bless
Wonderful
you.
to talk to both of you. Have a wonderful evening.
All right,
You too.
Bye. All right, and that's Widdershins. Okay, we plugged WitchCon. Also, if it's February 2023 where you are, there's still time to join my latest year and a day course, Witch School Level 1. Get over to gumroad.com/Witch School, WTCHSKEWL. Or if you're over here on TikTok, you just go to my profile and click on the link, and it'll say classes, and you're there. And the other thing, Witch Lens. We started our own social media platform a few months back, and it's called Witch Lens. And it's available on the App Store, Apple. And I know we're working on it. I actually got the technicians to answer me today.
Yeah.
Not that it's, going to go anywhere, but it's coming to Android. We're working on it. It's driving me crazy because there's so many things we want to improve on it. There's so many things we want to add to it. We can't do that till we get to the Android
is just like
thing.
The bare bones that it is right now. We have a lot
you
of
have
other
no idea
things.
what it is running your own social media platform. I'm sure Facebook has, office full of programmers to get everything done. But we don't have that at Witch Lens. So Witch Lens, like, something you would look through. Find it on the Apple App Store, and we're over there having a good time. It's the only social media platform where witches congregate, where there's not a bunch of fucking drama. I could say that about it. Can definitely say that about it. We're having a good time. We're sharing pictures and comments and links and things. It's, kind of old school. It's like Instagram before they had video, but that's one of the things we want to add. But Witch Lens, available on the Apple App Store. Widdershins comes to you whenever the hell we want. And we're
right
doing...
now it's all over the place because we usually come on Wednesday evenings.
Yes.
But now we're trying to interview as many WitchCon people as we can. So we've got some weekend ones coming up, Saturday, Sunday. Just whenever people have time.
Well, this one happened to be a Wednesday evening, but it's usually way later.
We usually start a couple before we
started
go today.
Do dad shit in a minute here. So usually later than we go, but we're doing our best to try and interview every WitchCon presenter that we possibly can.
Yep.
In a very short amount of time. Get over to witchcon.com. Time's running out.
We're even making food for the ones who live here and can come over.
Yes. And that one we know of. Next Wednesday, 6 p.m. Central Time.
Right.
I don't know how to say his other
We
name.
know him by a name that he used to use, but I don't think that's
Papa Cat. But we have another guest. Yeah, and they're going to be here live in the studios of Widdershins and experiencing the legendary hospitality of the Widdershins staff. Us.
And the dogs do their part.
And the dogs, of course. Thank you for joining us. We'll definitely be back Wednesday, 6 p.m. Central Time, but that doesn't mean that we're not going to book somebody between those times and broadcast. So follow us wherever you're following, and you'll get a notification. We have a Widdershins page on Facebook, and that's the first place that this post to. If you're on Facebook, follow that. If you're following me on TikTok, then you'll get a notification, and maybe it'll say Widdershins on it. But Widdershins, we out, bitches.
Fokker out.
Now we out over here. You tell them out?
Oh yeah, Fokker out.